the talk station is proud to present The War Files. The War Files, a selection of interviews honoring our warriors of the greatest generation, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam.
Your name?
George Richie from Cape Carteret, North Carolina.
George, you are a World War II veteran.
Mm-hmm.
First question, what service did you serve in?
Well, I was drafted just before the war in October, and I served in the U.S. Army and shipped to Panama. And when the war came out, they dropped the requirements for flying school so that with only a high school education, I could take an exam. If I qualified, I would be able to go to flying school. And that was a lot more thrilling than being in the jungles in Panama, because that wasn't too exciting. And by the time I got an application in, the Japs had sort of stopped their heavy advancement. So we were sitting down there in Panama with not much to do.
Now, where are you from originally?
Well, I was born in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, on a farm. My dad and mom ran a farm outside of Wilkes-Barre. And eventually he moved to New York to just change location and change business. And I was born in Wilkes-Barre and taken down as a young baby. We lived on a very nice apartment, from what they tell me. I don't remember any of it. But my dad could get up on the roof and watch the New York Giants play baseball. So that was quite a novel back in those days, before television. So then we moved over to Flushing, New York, and that's where I grew up. I went to school there and eventually was drafted from Flushing.
Now, you were drafted before the war broke out?
In, October of 41. But, the country was really getting to a war footing. There was no question that we were going to have a war. At least a lot of us didn't think so. And if you were over 21, which I was right around that time, I registered for the draft and was drafted. My brother was also drafted before the war.
Now, where did you do your basic?
I went to Fort Eustis, Virginia. We started off at Camp Upton, New York, and learned how to pick up cigarette butts for 4 or 5 days before they shipped us to Virginia, where I had my basic training. And after basic training, we were sort of just hanging around, and that Sunday was Pearl Harbor. And by Tuesday, we were getting shots and getting our uniforms changed to tropical khakis, and I figured we were going to go to the South Pacific, but we ended up in Panama.
What was it like on the day of the attack on Pearl Harbor? What was it like on the base?
Well, we weren't on the base. It was a Sunday, and I was in the movies with about 6 or 8 guys from the base, and they interrupted the movie and called everybody back to the base. So we went outside and hitched a ride back, and we finally got back to the base, and it was just a very chaotic. Everybody was driving around like crazy and screaming and yelling and whooping and hollering, but some came with long faces. I didn't really feel too...
You weren't shocked, in other words?
I wasn't shocked, no. I figured there was going to be a war, and I was shocked that Japan pulled that dastardly trick, but that's what they did, and it helped Roosevelt get everything through
Congress.
for his,
All right. You're down in Panama. You get the notification that you can go to flight school.
Yeah. That was tough, because I was on a gun position, and I was the only draftee on the gun position, and from New York City, and an altar boy, so I really didn't fit there. But because I could write good letters, they put up with me, so I used to trade my guard detail time for a letter. I'd write the letter, and the other guy'd pull my guard detail, which was 2 hours, and it took me about 15 minutes to write his letter. So writing a letter was sitting on a bunk with an old orange crate as a desk and just writing it down, and he'd be dictating it to me, and we sealed it up, and then he took 2 hours guard for me, so I loved it. But they didn't really respond gratefully for my wanting to become an officer. That was a big deal. The draft army, pre-draft army, which were in Panama doing a good job in defending the canal, they looked down on a guy that had to be drafted to serve his country. And I can see where it was. We didn't have any activities, pro or con, but it was something that they held against the fellas who were drafted. But eventually that all wore off. Once we got into really fighting the war, they found out draftees were just as good, were just as good as a regular guy. And Panama was an experience. I had never been in a foreign country before, and wow, it really is nothing but booze and sex, really.
Where were you stationed in Panama?
Well, my longest station, I was in Fort Amador when I first got down there, and then I went out to different jungle positions where we dug in 3-inch guns and 50 caliber guns. But by the time everything was set up, it had to be 8 or 10 months later, maybe less than that, I can't remember. But I was assigned permanently to a machine gun on top of a garage, right on the center wall of one of the locks in the Panama Canal. So it was good because we could go swimming anytime we wanted. But if a Jap ever came, he'd be heading right down to the locks, and that's where we were. We had about 9 guys on the fore end of the lock, and on the other end of the lock we had about 9 or 10. But they each had twin 50 calibers.
Okay, basically
on top of a flat roof building, which is a garage for they called them the mules. Mm-hmm. These are the electric trains, like they're small, very, very small, squatty electric carts. And they'd throw a line over and attach it to the train and pull it along very slowly through the canal. When they didn't go under power, mm-hmm. The boats were towed by those mules. And that's where they parked them when they weren't using them. And
so the purpose was basically to protect the locks from aircraft attack?
From aircraft attack, yeah.
All right, so you get message that you've been accepted to flight school.
Yeah.
Where did you go to flight school?
I went to flight school. Well, I flunked out of pilot training. I qualified for pilot training and went there very excited. But when I got washed out on my 75-hour check ride, which was right near the end of class, and I climbed up on the wing of the plane. We were flying PT-19As, which was a Fairchild, and I climbed up there, and he said, "Mister, do you want to get through this school?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, you're through." And boy, that was like somebody putting a knife in you, because going to pilot school was a big it was a big thing. So I went back to San Antonio.
I'm curious, why did he say you were finished?
Well, I flunked the test ride.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't my instructor. He was my check rider.
Okay.
And I guess he didn't like the way I flew, so
was it the way you flew, or was it the way you flew or landed?
Well, I can't remember. He just said I was through, and that sent me back to pack my clothes. And the next day I met the adjutant, and he got me out and down to San Antonio, Texas. This all happened in, now that, I don't know, it was in Oklahoma, a flying school in Oklahoma, but I don't recall the name. I do recall it, but I can't come up with it right away.
All right, but so from there, you're in Oklahoma.
I'm in Oklahoma. Then I went back to Texas, and that was very dull because you were on casual. You had no duties except policing the grounds and marching and attending retreat. And they used to get us all set up like we were going up to Fifth Avenue for the retreat, and it was just a big old, a bummer of a parade grounds. But we had to meet that every day that we were assigned. So Go ahead.
What were you doing in Texas? What were you being scheduled for? What was your next?
Well, when we took the qualifying exam, you either qualified for bombardier, pilot, or navigator. And if you qualified for what you wanted, you went there. And I was lucky I qualified for all three. And it wasn't an exam for brains as much as it was a dexterity type exam and a practical, down-to-earth exam. It was a good exam. And when I got through with it, I qualified for navigation and also bombardiering, and it was just a choice. I figured I'd like bombardiering better than I would navigating because I wasn't great on numbers and I wasn't good in math in school, although I was good enough to pass that exam. But I went to bombardier school and had no trouble, graduated, and then assigned to, this is about 1943 now, and I was assigned to a bomb group out of California. It's an old bomb group that was being, fitted for combat because I guess they were looking forward to sending us to Europe. That's where heavy bombers went.
What airplane were you flying?
At that time, we flew in B-24s.
Okay.
And we had a lot of things happen in B-24s. We were in Blythe, California, which was out in the desert, right near the Arizona border. And it was a very, very good, hard, difficult training session. They gave us a pass about every third week and went into L.A. for 2 days and then came back out. But Blythe was really in the desert, and we really thought we were going to go into Africa, but by that time I got out of there, Africa was history, and so they sent us to England.
We'll return to our War Files interview with George Richie in just a moment.
When do you fly, or
we flew.
Okay.
We flew. In fact, the whole group, I'll tell you, this is a cute story. Hap Arnold, who was head of the Air Force, was going into L.A., and he flew his own B-25, and they had engine trouble, so they happened to land at our base. And our executive officer for the whole group was a very young, hot pilot that was trained in West Point and had gone through the services pretty rapidly, and he was a major at that time. He became a colonel later on, and he lost his life on one of our missions. But he met Arnold, and Arnold told him the situation. Arnold was going to L.A. for some kind of a conference, and he had to get there, so he packed Arnold into his B-24 and flew him to L.A. and waited for him, and then flew him back, and of course the plane was ready when he got back. And during the trip, he talked Arnold into taking this group over to combat, that they're ready to go into combat, and they haven't got any orders, and they know that they need things over in England and, in any place, but he happened to mention England. Well, it all turned out just the way he asked Hap Arnold what to do, and Arnold went home and cut orders, and we were on our way.
Where did you fly to in England then?
Well, we picked up a brand new airplane in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay, first question about airplanes. They're always named and numbered. Did you have a name on this aircraft at the time?
Tiger Rag.
Tiger Rag. Who named the airplane?
Oh, the pilot. They're the big guns. The bombardier is down in the pecking order. But we had a great crew. And I was fortunate because the bombardier, and I didn't even know this even as a bombardier at the time. If I did, I had forgotten about it. The bombardier is the armament officer, plus some other responsibilities on the airplane. Everything is divvied up by the pilot, and by direct orders, really big orders that would come right from headquarters. That the bombardiers, all bombardiers, in their own airplane with their armament officer, and they were responsible for the bomb sight, the bomb racks, and all the guns and the turrets and the gunners. Well, you know, I was a little guy and a wise guy because I had a couple of years under me in Panama overseas service, which is nothing but a big waste of my time. But anyway,
you were a Mustanger too, because you were now an officer.
Yeah, now I'm a brand new second lieutenant, and a lot of people don't appreciate that, but it's worth working for, because what a difference between EMs and officers. It's wonderful if you're the officer. But anyhow, we had a very, very unusual guy as a pilot. He was three-quarters American Indian, came from Oklahoma itself, and the wildest, easiest talking fella you ever did meet. And he was great. I fell in love with him, and we all called him Chief. Well, everybody in the whole squadron liked him, and this lieutenant colonel who talked to Hap Arnold about getting us ready to go to combat was out checking the squadron bombardier. Now, I was just way back in the end of the trail, a bombardier, but he picked our plane to run and I don't know how you'd put it. We just had to check him out. I guess that's about the best way to explain it. He was the group bombardier who had been an old soldier, been in there quite a long time, went through the cadets just like I did, didn't make pilot training, but he made bombardier, and he became a bombardier. And but he did his office work, and then he went to the officers' club, and he was a little bit of a boozer. And, of course, the sight was easy for me because I had just gotten out of school and I was fresh for it. So we had 20 practice bombs, and the colonel decided to pick my pilot to just ride with, to, you know, fly with. And here I went along for the ride, and the squadron bombardier came in, and he took over, and I dropped the first 10 bombs because I said, I'll make sure this sight is calibrated perfect for you so that when you go, you won't have any trouble. Well, he hardly knew how to get a bomb out of the airplane. They had changed so much stuff since he had been in. And I guess he was called on without warning, because it was like he was a freshman in bombardier school. And he had all kinds of trouble. So when the flight was over, my pilot, the good old chief, started telling the colonel and buttering him up because he wanted to become a lead crew and tell him how good I was. Well, that was a mistake, because they took me off at Holmes's crew and bumped the squadron bombardier off his crew, and I got on his crew before we even got to England. Now, that was unusual. So it was great for me, but it really wasn't, because everybody thought I was a brown nose, if I can use that expression on the air.
I'm curious. Let's talk about the work of a bombardier. Now, you mentioned the bomb sight, things of this nature. What does a bombardier do on a B-24? First off, where are you located in the airplane?
Right in the nose. They had a nose with a plexiglass nose so that you could see right out. And later models had guns on each side. The first model that I flew didn't have any guns up there, so that all you did was the bomb sight. But then they found that fighter attacks from the enemy were coming into the nose, because that was the least defended on the B-24. It only had 2 guns on the top, and nobody could shoot anything. And luckily, if he could, get the ball turret going. But the top turret gunner was about his best shot. So they put a turret on the 24, and they did B-17s, they modified that too. But that's what the bombardier does. He makes sure the gunners have all their equipment, and
But what is it? What is you're doing as you're doing a bomb? Because we're going to hear about this. But what do you do?
You think it's still classified?
Oh no, I doubt it. But what are you doing? What do you do?
Well, you go in. First of all, you don't do any of the bomb loading. You got armors, guys that work hard all day and half the night, and they come out in dollies and bring it. I'm sure you've seen it on TV.
How many bombs would you be carrying?
Well, we call maybe 5 to 6 ton we'd carry. So we'd carry, say, 24 of a lighter bomb, and then maybe just 8 of a heavy one.
Okay.
We could carry 2 in each rack.
Okay.
We had 4 racks and 2 bomb bays, which was 1 fore, 1 aft. They were right close to each other.
All right.
And you had a catwalk down the middle. So you went into the catwalk and you checked the load, made sure all the shackles were done, and the bomb has a copper wire going from the shackle to the back of the fuse. So when the bomb drops out, the fuse wire comes out and stays in the airplane, and then the bomb drops out, and there's a little propeller on the back that everybody has seen. Well, that has to go so many thousand turns before it arms. It's ready to arm when the wire comes out, but it won't go off. Like if it dropped out of the bomb bay, it wouldn't go off. But after that little propeller has turned so many revolutions, it's like 2,000 or 3,000 revolutions, but it's set by the people that load the bombs. They get a battle order from headquarters, just like I get, and then they do their part of it, and then I do my part of it, and the pilot really steers the airplane until we get to where we're going to be dropping the bombs, and the bombardier takes over.
And what are you looking at? Two quick questions regarding the timing on the bombs.
Okay.
Is that determined by the altitude?
That's all. Well, actually, it's done by the people that plan the mission. And I don't do any of that.
But they know what altitude they're anticipating dropping.
Yeah, it's all done by
all right. The battle order. The other question is, of course, you're looking at a bomb site. What do you see in the bomb site? What are you looking?
Well, it's just like looking at a big. Through a big peephole on the back end of a rifle.
Okay.
Except it's a little bit bigger.
So basically a telescope.
It's just like a telescope.
Are you adjusting for wind speed?
You put the. I'll tell you just exactly when you pre-flight the flight. Of course, you do it with a battle order that has an awful lot of information there for you, and that tells you what the trail is going to be. Because when the bomb drops out of the airplane, the wind force on the nose keeps it back a little bit, and that's all figured mathematically.
Right.
We all have tables for that. So when we look at our altitude and we look at the calculated wind speed, and we put the trail in the bomb site. Now the trail will
basically it offsets. It accommodates
the
okay.
It's pretty hard to explain. It's been so many years.
But as the bomb is falling, if it's going to fall to the left or to the right, or if it's going to fall back, and the speed of the fall and things of that nature.
Well, yeah, that's what the site does. Yeah, the site really positions the airplane to the spot in the sky where if you drop the bomb, it's going to hit the target on the ground.
Now, the bomb site, is that something you said calibrate? Is that something that stays on the airplane, or is that something you carry with you?
When I got in combat, we had to pick the site up after every mission and take it back into the bomb site maintenance office where they put it in a vault because it's still classified secret. And you had to carry a gun, and if you bailed out, you had to shoot the site before you left. Well, I was part of it. Wow. Because they didn't want anybody to be able to find it. But by the time I got in the war, they had maybe more sites than we had from the planes that went down. So they declassified the site as top secret. So, we didn't have to carry it back and forth. They could leave it in the airplane.
We'll return to our War Files interview with George Richie in just a moment.
remember I ever was afraid, but I must have been. And nobody really gave much indication unless they were really stressed out and couldn't handle it, and then they went on sick call and they disappeared.
Right. Now, you're arriving in England after the Battle for Africa. So have there been bombing raids in Germany at this point?
Oh, sure.
All right.
Sure.
And
I mean, this is in 1940, the beginning of 44.
All right.
Because I was there for D-Day in June.
All right. You'd already heard, I assume, the high casualty rate for the bombing runs.
Oh, absolutely. We memorized them.
I mean, the return flight,
I can't really give you any satisfactory answer because it really was a esprit de corps that you couldn't find anyplace. I don't want to start crying.
No, but
these guys
that's what I'm
were the toughest little itches you ever saw in your life. They were conceited and braggadocio, and they didn't really care. That's their external. What they were doing inside, I don't know.
Well, it's important because there are a lot of casualties.
We had,
I mean, as I understand it, originally it only took 25 flights or thereabouts to return because the chances of survival
first was 25.
And then
it went to 30 because we were getting better at doing what we were doing.
And better air cover.
And better cover, yeah.
All right. So that's why I'm wondering what's the conversation. Okay. By the way, you said Broads. Are you married? What's the situation at this point?
No, I was a bachelor, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I...
All right. So you're in Marrakesh.
Yeah, and then we took off from Marrakech and flew along Spain to England.
Mm-hmm.
We were just almost due north. And then we landed in England.
Do you remember where in England?
Yeah, sure, Mendlesham. That was our air base.
How?
It was in East Anglia.
How many airplanes are we talking about? I mean, what was it like?
About 80. And we all took off at different times. Now, you ran into a couple at each stop, but not a lot. And you shot the breeze, and you went out and had a few beers. You didn't have anything to do.
We're talking 80 airplanes. We're in the midst of a war. We're trying to build up our war armament.
Yeah.
That's a lot of airplanes.
Oh, it's a lot of airplanes, yeah. We had the whole group. That was 4 squadrons.
22 a squadron. Roughly.
Well, yeah, when you fly, the biggest formation we would have would be 24 when we were flying. We would cut it down sometimes and fly an element, and there were 4 elements in the squadron.
Mm-hmm.
But we flew 3 to 4 squadrons. You had a lead squadron, you had a high squadron, and a low squadron. Then you had Taylor and Charlie squadron, which was in the back. And that's how you flew. You flew in an air block where your squadron is assigned you, and you flew up in the high lead, or if you flew the wing, you flew on the wing, and there was 12 airplanes in each little squadron flying. That would be, and then there's 4 squadrons flying.
Sort of a diamond shape in each squadron?
You'd fly like in a diamond shape, yeah.
Close,
but it was all done by the people who were there before us. We knew Kurt LeMay. He used to be a CO of the group I was in, because I was in a group that had already been formed before the war, and they were flying sub-patrols and coastal defense and training out in Connecticut, and he was the CO in charge of the 34th Bomb Group. That was our big claim to fame. But then he got over, and about the time we got over there, he got shipped out to the South Pacific. But he started all these procedures that we had to comply with, how we should fly. I mean, it was all changed by the time we got there, and it was a very efficient killing machine. We did a lot of damage.
All right, now let me go back to the air group that you're part of at this point. You've told me a moment ago that you've flown several airplanes. We'll get to that in a moment. What was the air group that you're a part of?
Well, I was in the 34th Bomb Group and then assigned in England to the 8th Air Force.
Okay.
I was in the training command in the States.
Right.
We weren't assigned to a big Air Force, just a training command. And then when we got over to England, they assigned us to the 3rd Wing of the 93rd, I think, bomb group. 93rd. We were the 34th Bomb Squadron in the 93rd Wing, which is a big... There were 3 wings in England, so the wing has maybe 500-600 airplanes in it. I don't know how many. I'm just guessing.
It's a lot of airplanes.
Yeah, we flew in a lot of different planes.
The skies had to be crowded. We'll get into that in a moment.
Very, very crowded.
All right. You arrive in England. Again, where is it in England that you arrive?
It was in Mendlesham.
Mendlesham.
It was in East Anglia, which is the bulge that sort of sticks out.
Closest to Europe.
To Europe, yeah.
All right. Now, is that going to become your home port?
That was our base,
That was your base?
I stayed there all the time.
All right. You were there, when did you start your first bomb run? How shortly after you arrived?
Well, we went in training. It seemed like forever we were in training, where we'd go up and we'd train by ourselves, and then we'd go up early and meet the bombing formation that was forming above England, and it was just going around and around, and you had to get 1,000 airplanes lined up so that you could get across the channel in order. And that was a big job. It was more of a job for the pilot and the navigator. But you spent maybe 2 hours in the air over England getting ready to launch your mission. And the mission might have been 2 hours.
Now, it's very cold in a B-24.
Yeah, we didn't have any pressurizing.
No pressurizing? No. You had air masks and so forth?
Yeah, we had oxygen masks and helmets and a heated suit. We had fleece first, the hero's flying jacket, but not the jacket, but the whole coat, which was lamb's wool,
right.
And the pants and the boots and everything. But by the time I was over in combat, they changed it to heated suits, which were very good, just like putting on a windbreaker, and it had wires in it and pants in it and shoes.
So when you got into your position, you plugged up?
You plugged up, and you just stood there comfortable, or sat there, or kneeled there, usually kneeling for the bombardier.
Were you kneeling the whole time, or did you have a place to sit?
Oh, no, I had the nose all to myself.
Okay, all right.
But, the nose wheel was in there with me, but I mean there wasn't a lot of room. I didn't, but that was where I worked, right there.
All right. First bombing run. When was that? Do you remember the date by any chance?
No, I brought the book, but I don't know. It was maybe April, May of '44.
Okay.
I didn't get there till '44 because
this is in advance of D-Day.
Yeah, D-Day was June of '44. That was my 6th or 7th or 8th mission on
D-Day.
D-Day. Yeah.
All right, what was it like on the first bombing run? And do you remember where you went?
It could have been France.
You were in preparation.
I don't really remember. It's all in the diary, and I didn't look it up before I came here. Yeah.
What was it like on that first day, on that first bombing run?
Well, everybody was excited. I mean, it was it was almost like you were at one of Hank's parades, with all the crowds would come down. After we flew about 10 missions, nobody came. But the first couple missions, everybody was excited.
You've been training for over a year.
Oh yeah.
So it felt good for.
Oh, it was great. We listen. For those that survived, I think they're all proud that they were part of it because it was a big operation. I mean, the country was so wound up on air power and tanks and machine guns that.
Are you in the lead squadron at this point?
Yeah, I happened to, as I was telling you before, when I rode with the colonel who was checking out my boss back in Blythe. That was my, I don't know what you'd call it, but that was my graduation because this guy fell in love with me, not the other guy. I mean, I didn't do anything that I wasn't doing every day because I had been training and training and training. This other guy, I guess he,
So you're in the lead squadron. Are you the lead bombardier?
I was the lead on I had 27 missions, and I led almost over half of them. And I was deputy on the others, so you were either lead or deputy lead.
I've talked to other B-24 and B-17 pilots. Mm-hmm. When you went on the bombing run, basically, as I understand it, the pilot handed controls over to you.
Yeah, they had.
You were in charge of the entire squadron.
Everybody that was coming with us. I mean, at one time I led the Air Force. Now, that was 1,000 bombers.
Did it ever occur to you that
Not really.
Singularly?
But after I got home, I was starting to think of what I did. You don't think of what you're doing. You're just flying one mission at a time. I mean, I knew I was a lead bombardier, and I knew I was a wheel, but I wasn't a wheel. I mean, you know.
It didn't
know. I'm sure there are guys think I'm a son of a gun. But...
because you have to stay on... You don't get to dodge and duck.
Oh no! Well, none of us do. You stay with the lead. You have a way to fly that formation, and you fly it. And thank God those guys used to get in there good and tight. And the whole thing, as a bombardier is concerned, you have to have a pilot who is, I guess you'd almost say, super mature, because he can't have any ideas that he's the wheel. I mean, I wasn't the wheel. Okay. It was the PDI, which is the pilot directional indicator, and the autopilot that did it all. All I did was stay in that little sight, and as I saw where the plane was going over the ground through the crosshairs, I would move a certain dial to get that crosshair so it ran true with the target.
Were you giving instructions to the pilot?
Only by automatic.
Okay, so you're literally flying the direction of the plane.
Oh, yeah, you fly, right from the IP, which might have been 50 miles away. I had a pilotage navigator who was...
IP, what does that stand for?
Initial point. That's the place that you find on the ground to turn on a certain heading that will lead you to the target. It's called the initial point, and that's when the bombardier takes over. But the pilot has to have the plane in so perfect condition to hand it over to you, and there's a procedure to get that done. And if the pilot is a good man, and I had all good pilots, never had any trouble, I'd just ask him to do this or do that, or I'd give him a signal with a bomb sight. And then when the plane is absolutely neutral flying, then he takes his hands off the wheel, holds it up. There's a sign that I'm off the wheel, and I click the bomb sight on, which takes over. I don't take it over. The bomb sight.
Can you see the pilot when he lifts his hands?
No, but we got signals.
Okay. All right, now, you're the bombardier.
Yeah.
You're in the nose of the airplane. Mm-hmm. You're the leading airplane.
Yeah.
And you're flying towards a position.
Yeah, but they don't think that way. You're getting too excited.
But wait a second. There's a lot going on.
Oh, yeah, there is a lot going on.
You're being greeted by...
flak and fighters.
Airplanes.
But mostly flak at this time, because the fighters were almost history.
The plane, is it bouncing around because of the flak?
Oh, yeah, sure. And taking holes, and taking hits, and taking everything.
What's going through your mind as the bombardier?
Just the work. I never worried about it. I was scared to death, but I wasn't thinking of that. I knew I had to do what I had to do, and I had to do it, and I did it.
We'll return to our War Files interview with George Richie in just a moment.
All right, 27 flights, 27 missions.
Yeah.
When was your last mission?
October in 44, over Cologne, Germany.
I've been to Cologne, Germany.
Oh, have you? Well, yeah. I never got there. I got shot down over Cologne and landed out in the country someplace.
How do you bail out of a plane?
Now more questions.
Yeah, how do you bail out of an airplane? Do you walk to a door and just jump out?
Well, in the nose is a hatch about maybe 2.5 foot by 2 foot. And that's the way you get in the nose when you're young. I tried to do it after the war. I couldn't get in. But you just jump up and pull yourself up, and it's a hole in the floor, and you climb in the nose that way. Off I went. I just went right out. I didn't do anything, no preparation. You're ready to go, you go. And that's what I did.
All right, you parachuted down. Where did you land?
I landed in a farmer's field. There were guys out working in the field, women and men. When I hit the ground, I flipped over and unbuckled the chute. But before I got out of the harness, they were shooting at me, and I couldn't imagine who was shooting at me. Well, it was, it was near the Rhine River, and we were near the Rhine River, and there were gun emplacements all over the countryside for anti-tank, and there happened to be an anti-tank German gun emplacement that was on top of the little hill that I was sliding down past. And they must have heard the farmers yelling and screaming, and so they had 3 guys and a sergeant came down, and they had to shoot over my head because they just didn't shoot. Didn't hit me, but they were close. They couldn't have missed me. And so I got down, I got out of my harness, and he made me gather my chute up and hold it up, and he took me to the top of the hill and put me on a truck and brought me to his headquarters. And they took me to a school, and in the cellar of the school they had a holding pen for guys that they'd pick up. And I was held in there for most of the day, and a truck came and picked me up. Eventually we got through a trolley car. They put guards on us. They took the Air Force guys and put 2 guards on us. They took us to a trolley. I don't know what they did with the fighter pilot. I hope they took him to a hospital because we were near Cologne, so there had to be good medical thing. Well, anyway, I was the last I had seen him. And we got onto a trolley, and they took us to the trolley, and then we kept moving around and eventually put us into what they called a Dulag. And that was in the town called, I think it was Wetzlar, but I'm not positive.
What was it like as a prisoner of war? What about clothing, food?
You had your own clothes. You wore what you got shot down on. The biggest mistake I made, my brother was there, and he belonged to an outfit that supplied bases with everything, bombs and airplane parts and stuff. And he would come every 2 weeks and take an order for what they needed. And, it was great to see him there. We didn't even know this was happening,
No, wait a second.
He was in England. He went to England in 42.
Okay, this is before you got shot down.
Before we got shot down. And he pops on the base, and I almost fell over because he came over. They had an open-air system, a tannoy system, they call it, like a broadcasting system.
Right.
And they called my name, report to headquarters. So I pop up there, and there he is, But that was his job. I didn't know. We weren't writing letters.
Right.
I knew he was in England, but didn't know where he was.
Speaking of letters, did you write home very often?
Yeah, a lot.
And what about letters coming to you?
Very, very slow, but they came.
All right.
And in prison camp, they never got a letter back. I wrote little cards. They rationed everything, and you got a little card twice a month that you wrote to your mother or your father or somebody. This is a guess. I got there in October, a couple months, maybe 3 months.
Okay.
And we went out the end of January. It was after New Year's.
Right.
I don't remember the date, but it was in the winter. And we had gone from near Frankfurt all the way, when I got shot down in Cologne, then I was moved, my first under wraps was in Frankfurt in a Dulag, and then I went all the way across to Poland in a Stalag because they had a lot of the bad stuff they were doing in Poland.
Right.
They did a lot of bad things, and
but then the
Russians were coming through that way, and hell, we even had the Stukas going into their dive bomb over our camp, and they were bombing, maybe 10 miles ahead on
So they're moving you, the prisoners,
by foot. Yeah, they didn't have.
How long were you, how long were you marching, and where did you march to?
Well, it was broken up, but we were outdoors maybe 2 or 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it was bad. We slept in barns or on the road. And they were sending tanks and everything through them, going to stop the Russians. And you'd give way to the right, and you'd dive in the snowbank because these guys didn't care if they ran over you. They just went lickety-split.
So where did you end up?
Well, we ended up in outside of Nuremberg. In fact, we could see the walls and seats of the Nuremberg Stadium. And right close to there was a big marshalling yards that the 8th Air Force bombed a couple times. And that was a sweat, because you'd be up there seeing these guys, and they're just about coming, they'd make a little turn. And,
that's my point. How did you...
well, we were in slit trenches.
Okay.
And we were safe. We had barracks that had holes from flak bombs going through.
All right. How long did you were you a POW before, and when were you released?
Well, I don't know what month it had to be January or early February that we got to Nuremberg, and then they put us on the march again because Patton was coming, and we were supposed to go down to Munich, which was a good walk, and we had to cross the Danube, and the weather was much better, so a lot of guys were leaving because the Germans were so disorganized. It was pathetic to see these guys. They weren't even soldiers. They were just disappointed, crushed men, crushed, because I had one German major that interrogated me up in one of the first camps I was in, and he roughed me up a little bit, and he said, when you talk about Adolf Hitler, now that you're in Germany, you give him the same respect as you would Jesus Christ. And he was ready to flame out, but he didn't do anything to me. But he let me know that Hitler was more than just a politician in Germany. I mean, it was really almost their religion.
All right, so you're repatriated of sorts.
Yeah.
What do you do, and where do you go?
Well, we finally got back to the States. We went to Paris, and fortunately, the guy, he was a captain that ran the hotel. It was on Lafayette Street. I used to know the number of it, but I never went back to it. I thought maybe I'd go back sometime. But it was just a little small a small hotel in a big city.
Right.
And the Air Force took it over, or the Army maybe, and it was called the Ramp, Return Allied Military Personnel, and you had to register on the Ramp if you wanted to get to the States.
Okay.
The guy I escaped with didn't want to. He wanted to go back and take up with the girl he had in Holland for about 8 months, and some guy turned him in because he wanted the girl. I mean, that's the way they work, these civilians. I used to be a civilian. But anyway, he left. We were in Paris. He was on one side of the railroad, the station. I was on the other. My train came in. I waved goodbye, and then his train must have come in. I've never seen him again. And we got on a Liberty ship there, and we sailed across the Atlantic and landed at Boston. At Boston, we were in a Camp Standish for a couple, 3 days, and they issued discharge papers. It was just a matter of paperwork, so you waited there for your paperwork, and I got on the train. They gave you money, and I got on the train and went to New York, got landed at the railroad train, took the subway and moved to Flushing and walked home.
What was it like getting home?
Well, I remember one of the things that happened. My mom, when I got in bed, I called, "Hey, Mom, come here." I said, "Where'd you get the silk sheets?" She said, "What?" Well, I hadn't slept in a sheet in so long, I didn't know what it was like. And pajamas, I mean, this is heaven. I thought I was in heaven. She said, "Oh, no, those are the same sheets that you had when you went away." Oh, they're lovely. But it was just such a pleasure to sleep in a good bed, you know.
All right, real quickly, what did you do after the war?
I went right to school. I got home on a Thursday, and Monday my father and mother drove me to Syracuse to go to school. I went to Syracuse University. That's where I met June.
All right, and what were you studying there?
I was taking a business course.
All right. After the war, did you talk much about your experiences?
Oh, all the time.
Okay.
I mean, at the reunions, you know,
okay, but I'm talking...
you made up a bigger story than anybody.
No, it's interesting, though. We had
a lot of them were people like me, shot down and
POWs, and
didn't see anybody until after the war, and then we started this reunion, and we had 2 or 3 guys. One of the guys was on my crew, and it wasn't my crew, but on our crew.
Right.
And they organized and got as much records as they could and contacted people. And
since that experience, you've had Korea?
Yeah, Korea.
Vietnam.
I didn't go to Korea.
But Korea, Vietnam.
Yeah, Vietnam.
And now, of course,
Iraq
Desert Storm and Operation Rocket Freedom and Enduring Freedom.
Yeah.
Yet, we didn't start building a memorial for World War II until 2000.
Yeah, that was...
Why?
I mean, I don't know why. What are you asking me? I'm just a little podunk from...
Have you been to the memorial?
Yes, we have been.
Final question. What is probably the greatest aspect of your experience in World War II?
I think appreciation of what we have here. And really, sometimes I look at some of the guys that are running this place, and they don't know what they got. But they've got the best country in the world and the best people in the world. I could go into a lot of philosophical stuff, but I won't. It's just, this is the best place that you could ever be. It's worth fighting for.
George Richie, thank you very much. You finished out as a first lieutenant?
Well, I'm a major in the reserve,
okay,
but I was a lieutenant. Yeah, I never got promoted. I got promoted once, but
so you stayed in the reserves? I
stayed in the reserves, and I got to be a major, but I didn't do much. Because the reserves, when I got into it, there weren't many. I mean, they weren't really organized. Like the National Guard was organized a little bit better. I could have gone into that, but I went to the reserve because it was right there in the town that we're living in, and then they never really took off. It was just... How
long have you lived here in Carteret County?
Since '86.
What brought you here?
Really, what brought us here is golf. We took up golf up north, and then we found we couldn't play but 4 or 5 months a year, and I was getting ready to retire.
Where'd you retire from?
Well, I ran my own business. When I got out of school, I went to work for a firm, A.H. Pond Company in Syracuse, New York, which was a jewelry house. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't getting any promotions. So I quit and started my own business in a different section. I was only carrying very inexpensive jewelry, where the other house that I was in was a diamond and solid gold house. And I didn't have the funds to finance that type of expensive operation. So I went into what they call in the trade junk jewelry, which was imitation pearls, imitation gold, which is most popular, easier to sell. And I raised 5 kids out in a country place that we fixed up into a nice little playground, and we stayed out there for maybe 30 years. And I operated first out of the trunk of my car, then I operated out of my garage, then I operated out of a building we bought downtown until I couldn't, my arthritis took over and I had to quit.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I certainly thank you, Lockwood.
You've been listening to The War Files, a selection of interviews honoring our warriors of the greatest generation, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. The War Files is a TalkStation presentation.